Okay, for this video we want to talk about arc length and the circumference that's related to this arc length. So as you, first I guess we should talk about what circumference is. Circumference and the formula that goes with it. The formula is 2 pi r, which I don't like the way that looks. Let me erase that. 2 pi r, so that's our circumference, and the circumference is the distance around a circle. So when we talk about circumference, we're talking about from here, if I went around the circle back to here, that would be the circumference. Okay? So with circumference, you're going to need, you're going to be given a problem, and you're going to probably be told how long the radius is. So if you were given this problem and you were told to find the circumference of this circle, all you would have to do is plug in the 2 for the radius and solve. So 2 times 2 is 4 pi. If I left it at 4 pi, this would be an exact answer. But if I take it and I put 4 pi in my calculator and I get a decimal for that answer, that is going to be a rounded answer. So I can round the rounded answer. If I round it to the 10th, I would get 12.6. So these two answers are equivalent. One is exact and one is rounded. You know that when you put that pi goes on forever. So if I truncate it in my calculator and I said, hey, let's stop at the 10th, then I've rounded that. I've stopped it. So it no longer is exact. Alright, circumference is used with arc length, and there is a formula for arc length. And the reason it's used is when you hear circumference, you're going to hear either the distance, so some keywords would be distance or length when you're talking about arc length. Alright, so let me start a new screen. We'll go on to arc length. There's a formula for arc length, and the formula is nothing more than the piece of the circle that you're looking for. If I have from this radii, from that one to that one, I'm actually looking for the arc length, or the piece of the circumference that's related to that measure of arc, the circle. It's related to that circle. Alright, so my formula is the arc length is equal to the measure of the arc, which is measure is always a degree, over 360. It's the piece of the circle that you're actually looking for, times circumference. So arc length has everything to do with circumference. So if I create a problem for this, if we look at, perhaps I told you that this was 8 meters and that this arc was 70 degrees. Remember back when we did circles, in the beginning we talked about central angles were the same as their arc. So if that's 70, this is 70, and all I have to do is fill in the missing parts. So arc length, the measure of the arc is 70. So 70 over 360 times 2 times pi times my radius of 8. Now I can put this whole thing in my calculator, but remember, make sure to use parentheses when you put that in your calculator. When you do that, for a rounded answer, you will get 9.77 when you put that in your calculator. Okay? It's nothing more than following exactly what I've got right here on my screen. Now, if I wanted an exact answer, I would put 70 over 360 in my calculator. Of course, I need to have it in parentheses. Times 2 times 8. I'm going to leave the pi off, and I end up with 3.6. I didn't put pi in my calculator, so it needs to come down. If it's an exact answer, it's going to have pi as part of the answer. So that's exact, and this is rounded. Okay? Nothing more than that. Pretty simple. Now, if I want to, that was exact and rounded. Let's try working backwards. Let's try finding some of the missing pieces. What if on my problem I want to find, let's see, I want to find the radius. So we've been talking about these things. Find the radius. So here's one of my problems. I've got an arc here, 60 degrees. I don't know my radius, but I do know the measure of the arc. So the measure of the arc is 3.82 meters. Alright, so when they give you the meter portion, that's finding the arc. That actually is the arc. So in this problem, they actually told me the arc length is equal to 3.82. Okay, so now I can set up my problem. Remember, the formula is arc length over the measure of the arc over 360 times 2 times pi times r. So all I have to do is fill in for the pieces that I already know. Well, I do know that my arc length is 3.82. I know the measure of my angle, it's 60 over 360. I know 2 times pi, but I don't know my radius. That's what I'm trying to find. Alright? So if I can get everything away from that radius and move it on over here to the left-hand side, I'd be doing good. So what I suggest is put this portion right here in your calculator and get a decimal. So let me see what that is. If I do that, I've got 60 divided by 360, and of course it's in parentheses, times 2 times pi. That gives me 1.047. So I'm going to round that to 1.05. So I've got 3.82 is equal to 1.05 r. And if I want to find the radius, I can divide by 1.05 on both sides, and that's going to leave me with the radius. So when I do that, I get 3.82 divided by 1.05, and I get 3.63. If I round that, it goes to 3.64. So that's my radius. That's how you're going to find a radius with the arc length. Now, if I want to find the actual measure of my angle, I can do that also. So let's try that. Finding the measure of the arc. And let's see, I've got a circle. How about if I want to find the measure of my arc? I'm going to use this. I'm going to be given, well, that is deceiving. I didn't mean for it to look like 90 degrees because that is not the measure of this problem. So let me do it a little better here. How about here? I'm going to tell you that the measure of the radius is 8 meters, and the measure of the arc length is 9.77 meters. So you've been given the measure of the arc length, or I should say the length of the arc. Now I want to find the measure of the arc. So I'm trying to find this missing piece right here. So if I take my formula and I fill in for what I know, the measure of the arc is the piece that's missing, times 2 times pi times r, I can fill in. So I've got 9.77 is equal to, I'm going to put an x here because that's what I'm looking for, times 2 times pi times 8. So let's clean up a little bit. I've got 9.77 equals x times 360 pi. Okay? So those two things are multiplied. Let's go ahead and divide 16 pi on both sides. When you do that, that 16 pi has to be in parentheses. So 9.77 divided by 16 pi is 0.19. So 0.19 is equal to x over 360. Now how do I get that 360 off the bottom? In order to get that 360 off the bottom, you have to multiply it by both sides. It's division. The opposite of division is multiplication. So if I multiply both sides by 360, that cancels, and I end up finding my measure of my arc. So I have 360 times 0.19, and I get 68.4. And we could just round that to 68 degrees. Now, sometimes your answer is going to fluctuate because we're using pi in and out of the problem, and where you actually use a decimal for pi is what makes your answer a little bit different. So be careful with that. Solve for the measure of the arc. We found the radius, and we did a regular problem. So that's it for arc length.